My mother-in-law insulted me at a restaurant and told me to pay the bill, or I'd be kicked out and should get ready for a divorce. My husband sided with her. We were celebrating my husband's promotion at Morton's Steakhouse downtown. He'd just closed a massive deal worth $500,000, and his mom insisted on taking the whole family out to celebrate. I should have known something was off when she specifically called me 3 times that week to make sure I'd be there. She'd spent the last 3 years finding creative excuses to exclude me from every single family gathering. When we arrived at the restaurant, his 2 brothers and their wives were already seated in a private room. I noticed immediately there were only 6 chairs at the table for 7 people. My husband looked confused and went to talk to the host about getting another chair brought in. The second he left the room, his mother leaned forward with this ice-cold smile and said, "There's no seat for you because you're not really family. You just married in. You don't belong here." I stood there frozen while his brothers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their wives suddenly became very interested in studying their menus like they contained the secrets of the universe. My husband came back with a chair completely oblivious to what just happened. The waiter took our orders, and for the next hour, I sat through the most uncomfortable dinner of my life. His mother kept making these little comments about how some people marry up and should be grateful for the opportunity, about how lucky I was to land her son. Then dessert arrived. She ordered a $300 bottle of champagne for everyone and stood up to make a toast. She went on and on about her son's success, his bright future, how incredibly proud she was of everything he'd accomplished. Then she turned to me, "And since you're not really family but we're generous enough to include you anyway, I think it's only appropriate that you cover tonight's bill as a thank you for allowing you to be here." The entire table went completely silent. I looked at my husband, waiting for him to say literally anything in my defense. He just stared at his plate like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. I felt everyone's eyes burning into me. "That's over $600, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Then you better start job hunting, sweetie," she said with that same cruel smile. "My son deserves someone who can actually contribute something meaningful to this relationship." My face went hot. I could feel my hands trembling under the table. His brothers were suddenly fascinated by the wallpaper. Their wives had their phones out, pretending to check very important messages. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward her. "This is my annual salary," I said. "I work as a senior consultant in tech." Her smile completely disappeared. The number glowing on the screen was $140,000. I made $40,000 more than her precious golden boy. She tried to grab my phone, but I pulled it back. "That's not possible," she stammered, her face going red. "Women in tech don't actually make that much." I stood up, feeling something shift inside me. I'd spent 3 years being polite, swallowing her insults, trying desperately to make this family work. I pulled $300 bills from my wallet and dropped them on the table next to my completely untouched dessert. "That covers my portion and a very generous tip for our server," I said, looking directly at her. Then I turned to my husband, who was still sitting there like an absolute statue. "Your mother just publicly humiliated me, and you said absolutely nothing," I told him. "The lawyer's office opens at 9 tomorrow morning. I'll be there waiting." I started walking toward the door and heard her voice behind me getting shrill and panicked. "You ungrateful little snake, how dare you embarrass my son like this in public?" I didn't turn around. I just kept walking with my head held high. My husband finally found his voice. "Sam, wait please," he called out weakly, but I was already at the exit. I heard his mother say, "Let her go. If she can't even afford to treat the family to one nice dinner, she's clearly not worth keeping anyway." That's when I stopped dead in my tracks. I walked back to the table while everyone stared at me with their mouths open. I looked at my husband one last time. "I could afford this entire dinner 3 times over," I said loud enough for nearby tables to turn and stare. "What I absolutely cannot afford is spending one more day in a family that treats me like hired help." Then I walked out into the night and didn't look back.